people that are setting these kind of criminal activities up, they do not care about the patient. So all they care about is generating revenue, making money. So we don't know what's in counterfeit medication. It could be anything. I mean, I've heard all the stories of, patients saying, well, I never felt anything, so I took another pill or I took another 3 more.
Welcome to the Wellness Report. I'm Maynard. Today we're talking about a massive shift in public health. The Wegovy weight loss jab is officially hitting the UK as a daily pill. But whether you think the needle-free fat loss pill is good news or not, this launch triggers one immediate, incredibly dangerous side effect: a massive explosion of fake pills on the black market. Here to tell you what you need to know from the National Pharmacy Association is Sahar Shahid. Sahar, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, your own data shows an absolute landslide of panic, really. It's 97% of UK pharmacists are terrified that this new Wegovy pill is going to trigger a massive black market boom. So in plain English, just how dangerous is the tsunami of fake pills we're about to see hit the streets?
So the worrying thing is that tablets, any drug, the tablets form is always more easier to counterfeit and replicate and falsify. So because now this is a weight loss medication that's now coming out in a tablet form, that's where the worry comes in, because it's easier to counterfeit, far easier to counterfeit than an injection. And the reason why we're worried more specifically around the weight loss tablet is because of the demand in weight loss treatment in general. We've already seen previously, fake injections coming into the market, counterfeits, etc., and unregulated supplies over the last couple of years, which is really, really worrying. Patients getting their hands on things that they think is weight loss medication, but actually it's not. So if that's already happening with injections, which are typically more harder to counterfeit, the tablet version is much easier, so the risk, I believe, would be greater.
When people buy a fake weight loss injection, they can usually spot a dodgy needle. But, if the pill is just a powder in a capsule, how are people supposed to know?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes with an injection, you can, spot things straight away. For example, the liquid may not be clear. It might be cloudy, discoloured. It might have particles in it. It doesn't, the needles, for example, aren't sterile, etc. There's so many kind of obvious factors. But like you said, with a tablet's a tablet. But I think there's some key things that a lot of patients should be aware of in doing is, first of all, checking the source of where they're getting their medication from. Now, because this medication isn't available on the NHS as of yet, since it's launched, that will maybe come later down in the line. It has to be prescribed privately on a private prescription. So most providers are either online or private clinics. So patients need to go to somewhere that's regulated. So for example, a regulated online pharmacy, a regulated clinic, or a community pharmacy as well that's licensed with the GPHC. That's the first and foremost starting point. Please do not purchase weight loss medication from social media, Facebook Marketplace, or even the gyms or hair salons like beauty salons, because that's where we're seeing illegitimate supplies, coming through. Because to supply a prescription-only medication, you have to have a license, and pharmacies are the ones that have a license to supply and source medication that is genuine. So first and foremost, patients need to make sure they're going to a regulated provider.
What are criminals actually putting inside these fake Wegovy pills?
So we don't know what's in counterfeit medication. It could be anything. It could be absolutely nothing. But at the end of the day, the reason why the counterfeit issues are so worrying is because the people that are setting these kind of criminal activities up, they do not care about the patient. So all they care about is generating revenue, making money, right? So they could be potentially putting things in that are harmful, and you will never know until you take it and become really ill. Or secondly, it could be a medication that's just a tablet that's got nothing in it, that of no value, and then patients are then being vulnerable and paying for something that they think is a weight loss medication that will give them results, and actually they don't get the desired results or the effect of the medication.
With the old injections, criminals needed refrigeration, sterile glass vials, complex pens, which kept a lot of low-level criminals out of the game. But with a pill, anyone with a cheap pill press in a dirty garage can crank out thousands a minute. So are we about to see an absolute explosion of street-level dealers flooding the UK with backyard Wegovy?
I really hope that we don't, because we're trying to educate patients. We always have been around weight loss because it is in such demand. But yeah, you're right. The key difference on storage, of either the tablet or injection. Tablets are just stored at room temperature as normal, like any other tablet, whereas injections do need to be refrigerated. But again, even with the kind of criminal counterfeits, those organisations that are doing this, even with injections, they do not keep the medication refrigerated. They do not care. So that's another key thing of when patients are accessing it from unregulated providers. Even if they have got their hands on a genuine medication and they're trying to sell it on the black market, these organisations will not care that medication has to be kept refrigerated. So even if you're getting a genuine medication from a black market or unregulated source, you need to also worry about the storage and how that medication has been handled, because in a pharmacy it's been handled with the correct storage. So I think it is worrying, but I think the main thing that we can do is educate the public on going to regulated providers, and also just making the message loud and clear. This is still a prescription-only medication. Although it's in a tablet form that is easier to take, it's still a prescription-only medication. It still needs to have a consultation. It needs to be prescribed. So just because it's an easier formulation doesn't necessarily mean that access is all of a sudden a lot easier and less strict. Patients still need to meet a BMI criteria, same with the injections. So that's the key thing. We just want to educate the public around, all the noise that's coming out of. Obviously, it's a great thing that an oral weight loss option is now launched in the UK, but equally it's about patients being responsible, because weight loss and treatment is treating a chronic relapsing disease of obesity. So the same way you wouldn't just go to anywhere and get any medication off the black market or off social media for other conditions, we need to apply that same responsibility to weight loss.
With a pre-filled injection pen, the dose is locked in. But with a fake pill, the chemical distribution can be wildly uneven. If someone takes a fake Wegovy pill, feels nothing because it's a dud, and then takes 2 to 3 more and tries to force it to work, what will actually happen to their body?
I mean, I've heard all the stories of, patients saying, well, I never felt anything, so I took another pill or I took another 3 more, not just for weight loss, but just in general. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes people do think less because, take it less seriously because it's such a common formulation. It's a tablet, you just pop a couple in. There's that mentality is a wee bit different to then perhaps the stigma that there is around injection. So yeah, absolutely, that could also be a risk, that patients don't necessarily feel anything and then maybe take a lot more than what they should be taking. And then the issue is, because we don't know what is ever in these fake counterfeit medications, we will never know what the outcomes or the risks will be until it's too late, until the patient then does become really ill.
And finally, so what is your final takeaway on this new Wegovy pill? Is it all bad?
I, look after so many patients in obesity care and weight loss. Have been prescribing GLP-1 medication for a number of years, and I only think that the good that will come out of this is far greater than the risk, and we need to, always bear that in mind. The launch of the first oral GLP-1 medication for weight loss is huge. It's we're going down in the right direction of giving more access to patients, more choice, because what we do know from the launch of this medication, the oral medication in America, around about 70% of the uptake was from brand new patients that had never ever had weight loss medication already. So it wasn't just a case of it's an option for people that are on injections that they can switch to a tablet form. What that showed as the launch in America was that actually there was a whole group of patients that needed weight loss treatment but didn't feel comfortable taking an injection, but now they have an option. So for me as a clinician, that's an incredible thing, to be able to support more patients that really need it. But equally at the same time, it is about supporting patients in the right way. It's about education. It's about helping them understand how they need to take the medication. It's, yes, it's an easier formulation, but it does have to follow a strict regime of how to take it. So for example, example, you have to take it on a fasted stomach, so at least 6 to 8 hours before, you have to be have not ate anything. So taking it first thing in the morning is perfect, and then taking it with only a small sip of water, no more than 120 mils of water, and then you cannot eat or drink or have any other oral medication for another 30 minutes after taking it. So that's quite a strict, regimen or direct dosage that you need to follow. If you do not follow all those steps, the efficacy and the bioavailability of this medication in your system will drop significantly, which will also mean that it's not going to work, and then patients may think, oh, it's not working, I've wasted my money, or I'll just take an extra tablet. So there's a lot of things around that where we want to educate. I think it can only be a good thing having more treatment options to really tackle the obesity kind of risks that we have when we're living with 2/3 of patients in the UK that are living with being overweight or obese. So it can only be a good thing, but at the same time, education is key around the risks associated with it as well.
So Shahid, thank you very much.